Of more on that, I'm joined by Harry Kazianis. He's the Director of Defence Studies at the Centre for the National Interest. Thanks for being with us here on France 24 tonight. We know that the United States was pushing for much stronger sanctions, including a total oil embargo. The Russians and the Chinese put pressure on and got that watered down. Will the sanctions that we have got make any difference at all to this regime and its intentions?
I think they will. I keep in mind, these are not game-changing sort of sanctions, but they will impact the North Korean regime. Keep in mind, North Korea's economy is very small. It's only worth about $14 billion. The textile ban that's going to be implemented is worth about $700 million to the North Koreans. So that is a large chunk of money that will be taken out of the North Korean economy. And we have to presume a large section of that money would go to North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. So these will have an impact, but these aren't the show-stopping sort of sanctions, such as a full oil embargo or something like that. But I think they will have a dramatic impact.
The risk, of course, is that these sanctions will not punish the regime per se. They will punish the North Korean people who, of course, are already suffering a great deal. I mean, is it ethical for the world powers to keep putting this kind of pressure on the North Korean people, if indeed it's not going to have the desired effect?
Well, this is the challenge, but I don't think we can place blame on the UN Security Council or the US or China or Russia. At the end of the day, the people who are actually making the North Koreans suffer is the Kim Jong-un regime. And keep in mind, this is a regime that has perhaps as much as 200,000 people in prison camps that control their people through starvation, through torture, through political control that's really evocative of Stalin, Hitler. I mean, that's the level of control that this regime invokes on its own people. So I don't think we can blame the United States or any other countries. I think what the United States is trying to do is to really contain the problem. And I think why the North Korean regime evokes so much fear here in the United States, Paris, London, Tokyo, is that this is a regime now that has nuclear weapons that can target the United States and Europe as well. So I think we have to keep these things in mind in a broader context.
It is a success in itself, isn't it, that China and Russia signed off on these sanctions. They, of course, don't always vote along with the United States. But they are still wary, aren't they? And they have warned the US against attempting regime change. Is Washington been able to kind of put those concerns to bed?
I think so. And I think we have to keep in mind here, the United States is not going to conduct regime change or some sort of unilateral strike or something like that. Because keep in mind, if the United States were to even consider such an operation, we would have to go in and eliminate North Korea's complete nuclear program and eliminate all of its nuclear weapons. And keep in mind, just a month ago, the Washington Post reported that North Korea could have as many as 60 nuclear weapons. So the United States would have to knock out all 60 of those nuclear weapons to be successful. Because if we weren't, even if we missed one or two of those weapons, I guarantee you those weapons are going to come down on Seoul, Tokyo, or perhaps Los Angeles. We're talking of millions of lives lost. So I don't think that the Trump administration is thinking about regime change at all. But the Chinese and Russians do have to help us implement these sanctions. Because if they don't, all this effort is going to be for nothing.
Harry Kazianis, thanks very much indeed. Now, a 20-metre tall